Hi, Minnie. So we can go ahead and get going since we only have limited time together. So I want to welcome everyone to the School of Social Work Student Organization's second in a series of roundtable events with faculty from the School of Social Work. My name is Claire Bergman, and I am a 5-year student and a board member of SWFI. Tonight's topic is field placement, so we will be asking questions based on different categories of experience with the internship process. So if you have questions throughout the night, please send them via the chat and we will relay them to our speakers. Also, this session will be recorded and then posted to our YouTube channel, so if you would prefer to have your camera off, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah, and hello everybody. So I'm Elizabeth Juarez, and I'm a second-year MSW student, as well as a SWFI board member. So we would like to begin by introducing our faculty members for this evening. First, we have Sylvia Corcoran, the internship coordinator for the first level students. And next we have Mini Datta. She is the Assistant Director of Internships and Career Services for primarily the working with second level students. So thank you so much both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then representing the students from the School of Social Work, we have the board members of SWFI. So first is Claire Bergman, who we've already met. And then next we have Mary Herrera and Claire Dooning. These are two of our transfer students in the School of Social Work BSW program. Right?
You want us to say something about ourselves or just go right into the questions?
Go right into it.
Cool. All right, so Sylvia, we're going to start with you because we know we only have limited time. So we have some questions about the first level internship experience. So how do students apply for that? Is that still through the same form that previous students have used, or is it solely on Sonia?
Well, everything's moving to Sonia for the future, but for this past fall, students were still using the link via Qualtrics and the link that was on the website. But everything in the future is going to be solely through Sonia.
Are internships selected for students based on prior experience as listed on their resume?
No, the first level internship is a generalist placement, and as such may not necessarily be aligned with your expressed interests and goals. However, the second level internship will, by design, be connected because it is related to your declared specialization. So because you self-select, which is a wonderful feature of Sonia, you self-select the sites that you want to apply to. So you have greater autonomy to select the sites that are of interest to you.
Yeah, I know I used Sonia for my first level placement and I really liked being able to see them. And then also you have the contact information right there for the person that we're supposed to email, which is also really helpful.
That's great to hear that feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, and you also kind of already answered this question. Do first year students declare specialization?
No, they do not. I do just want to add, sometimes students come in and it's wonderful if you're focused and you know what you want to do, but I always ask students to leave a little crack at the door because you're going to be instructed by some wonderful, well-known professors. And so you want to leave a crack for something that might pique your interest that you never considered. Because I have had students change what they were interested in based upon taking a class or two with some of our esteemed professors. So just leave a little bit of room for having your mind changed. But no, first level students do not declare a specialization.
And then the last question that we have regarding the first time internship experience, what advice do you have for students who are beginning this process of applying and searching for where they want to go?
Much like what I've said already, is to just be a tabula rasa, a blank slate, and just be open to different things and different possibilities and considering a population that you may not have considered before. And the reason why I say that is because the goal is by the time you leave and graduate, that you will have been exposed to two different, completely different populations. And so if you have an area that you want to work in, you can save that for your area of specialization when you declare for your second level internship. And your first level internship is a chance to kind of get your feet wet and be exposed to some different things. And that way, when you graduate, you'll be more well-rounded, having been exposed to two different populations. So just leave room for an open mind. That's what I would suggest that students do.
If I can add to that, with my career services hat, so a little pivot from the question that Sylvia answered, but in terms of taking advantage of both the first level and the second level, from a career services perspective, is in both of those opportunities, you're going to be utilizing your resume and cover letter to reach out to sites. So you have these two great opportunities to hone those documents and your skills, your interview skills, so that when you come to the career fair in your first year, whether you can come to your first year, as well as your second year, because we generally have one in March, and then you do your job search during that time period, you are really prepared to hit the ground running. So in terms of takeaways, I would add that as well to what Sylvia shared.
Okay, so we have a variety of questions that speak to both the first level and second level.
Thank you. That was a really good addition.
Second level experience. So what are the upcoming deadlines for students to be aware of in terms of field placement?
December 1st is an upcoming deadline for all first level students that are interested in securing either a summer block or a fall internship. The deadline to apply for a spring internship was September 15th. However, we are still accepting applications and will continue to work with students that desire to secure a spring internship.
I would just add that those deadlines apply to second level students as well.
Can you share, was there a drop in the availability of field placement sites because of the pandemic?
I don't know of anything that wasn't impacted by the pandemic. So absolutely, yes. Some sites elected to, in the interest of keeping their staff safe and their client population that they work with, some sites elected not to train students for the fall that normally would train students, and that's to their credit because they want to be able to fully provide a safe environment and operate in compliance with the COVID protocols. So yes, it did impact the sites that were available, but we also had new sites that applied, and so it kind of balances out.
I think we have a question in the chat.
Yeah, so Brian asked if the December 1st deadline is applicable for students seeking placement for spring of 2022.
The December 1st deadline is only for summer block 2021 and for fall spring semesters 2021, 2022. So it's the fall spring semester. The spring of 2022, the deadline would likely be similar to this year, September 15th of next year. So.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so what happens if your internship is terminated due to the pandemic?
We like to be able to still support a student to find another internship. We're very flexible and a variety of things can happen during the course of your internship year, COVID related or just personal, and we do support students to find another internship should that happen.
And the last question is, one of our audience members wanted to know, will Loyola's asymptomatic testing that's being rolled out this spring be available to those who are still going in field?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I actually did reach out to get some guidance on it. Unfortunately, the asymptomatic testing is only available for students that are coming to campus and using campus space. It is not intended for students in either fully online programs or those going to agency sites for their internships. So thank you for that question.
Claire D. Sorry.
Sorry, there were no more like things on the paper that had my name. So so that was all the COVID questions?
I can ask this next one if you'd like. It's the about the students who are in a hybrid placement. So if the internship is hybrid, what does Loyola require the field sites to keep us safe and minimize our risk of COVID?
Many can weigh in, but the expectation of any site is that they're in compliance with the COVID protocols, whatever they may be. And some sites are fully remote. Some sites, like you say, are a combination, a hybrid of on-site and remote, and some are just on-site. So whatever the agency is implementing or whatever they're offering, we do require and expect that they operate within the COVID protocols.
In regards to, Elizabeth, could you repeat that question? Because there was something that I remember, but now I can't. Just went right out.
Of course, of course. So if the internship is hybrid, so what does Loyola require of the field sites to keep us safe and minimize the risk of COVID?
And hybrid, I think, being that it's sort of both remote as well as potentially in person. Okay, all right. So Loyola's School of Social Work is following the guidelines of the CDC as well as the state. So to Sylvia's point, we have a risk management document that we've sent to all of our students. There's two forms. One is a informative document, and the second one is actually a risk waiver. The idea for that is to be aware, if you do need to go on site, to be aware of the protocols. If a site isn't following that, bring that to our attention, and we will work with you to determine how to move forward, because our safety of our students is very important. Sites are, I think, generally have pivoted to remote and our telehealth and are using and are following the guidelines from both the CDC as well as the local state guidelines. So in that sense, we have not had very many concerns related to that that have been brought to our attention. But that is the expectation is that they are following all of those guidelines.
And then I know some students, like I personally, I'm completely remote. And so some people are opposed to that. So is there a way that you can request a fully in-person internship?
I believe that when you are applying for an internship and you're extended an invitation for an interview, that is the best time to ask and inquire about the ways that the internship will be provided or offered. And so if there's some COVID parameters that will prohibit being on site, then you cannot do your internship on site because it would put you at risk and it's not safe to do so. So I hope that answers your question.
I believe so.
A question popped up in the chat as well regarding the testing. So regarding testing, I received this response from the director of the Wellness Center. All students who attend LUC will be in the testing program. So yes, you will be able to get tested. So there's some misunderstanding somewhere.
I did see that in the chat, and I will forward that to the assistant dean or associate dean to bring that to his attention.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then I think we have one last question, at least from our end. If anyone else has any more questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat. But our last like COVID related question was if you have any updates on the hour requirement, as I know it was changed at the start of the pandemic. So is it the same still, and how long is that going to last?
The hour requirements for first level students are 400 from 480, and this has been issued from the CSWE, the Council on Social Work Education, which is our accrediting body. And for second level students, it's 600 hours down from 720, and that goes through the spring of 2022.
Okay, thank you for those questions. I know COVID has been a big topic right now, as it has deeply impacted our learning experience. So we also wanted to talk about some of the selection process. We've heard some dissatisfaction from students with regards to this process and accommodations of student needs. So as the facilitators as SWFI, we facilitate between students and faculty. We wanted to really dive into these questions. So since now that we have social work students throughout the United States, what did the School of Social Work do to accommodate students who are no longer living in Chicago?
We've been very flexible given the fact that COVID has forced us to pivot, adapt, change, and be flexible. So if a student is living out of state, we've been encouraging them to find a site that's close to where they live or in the state that they live. They provide us with the contact information. We reach out and develop the site and have them complete an application to become an approved field partner. We make sure that we have the resume on file of the person that will be providing the student with clinical supervision, and the student can complete their internship where they live. I mean, we've been very accommodating in that regard.
We also do have a list of where the students are located for their fall spring internship, and the associate dean does have that information as they're making decisions related to next semester.
Thank you. And how do you take into consideration specific students' identities when selecting field placements? So is there consideration for disability, religion, access, different things of this nature?
Because of the autonomy that students are afforded with self-selecting sites in Sonia, the student is well within their right to share or disclose or choose whatever site that they're interested in. And when they get invited for an interview, then they can share whatever identity, whatever information about themselves that they choose to disclose. So the internship coordinator doesn't really have any bearing on that part of the internship process because it's self-selected.
Yeah, I would recommend, however, if a student does require an accommodation in field, that they do reach out to the Student Accessibility Center to receive that. I know that it's more common or considered for curriculum-based, but for field, you can also receive an accommodation, and the SAC team will assist you with the accommodation request in field.
Thank you, Minnie.
And so will students, so I know you've mentioned like students have a greater like autonomy in the process of selecting, and that's true for first and second level? Okay.
Yes, it's true for first level because it's a generalist placement, but it's also true for second level, more so because you declare your specialization. So your second level internship by design needs to be aligned with your declared specialization.
Right. And if the student has a subspecialization that they have been that they have applied for and been admitted to, they would need to consider that as well when identifying potential sites. But much of that information is listed in Sonia related to the site selection. So.
And then I know like so right now, like sometimes you hit the lottery and you get a paid internship. That hardly ever happens. But we were just kind of wondering, like, is the School of Social Work sort of working or building new relationships with organizations so there are more paid opportunities?
We are always excited and happy to embrace sites that provide stipends or paid opportunities for internships. We are collecting data on that through Sonia now, but it is a very small number of sites. So you would more likely get an unpaid internship at this time, unless, yeah.
I do want to add that sometimes sites, and it's not always known to us, and it doesn't have to be known, because the site may decide to reimburse student for whatever or compensate for, that's, the site decides to do that, and we're always appreciative of that if that's what they decide to do. But we don't keep records or keep track of if a student decides to offer a stipend that's not on the application process, is not a payment. It's not a paid internship, but it just might be, I don't know, to offset the cost of getting there. Who knows? Some agencies do have a budget that allows for that, but most of them don't. So the students know going up front that the internship is largely unpaid, but I always talk about the idea of spiritual currency. And although you're not compensated financially, you're rewarded with the development of an array of skills that you can put in your toolbox that you'll have with you when you graduate.
I thought Minnie was the career services person.
We all overlap.
So we've mentioned Sonia a lot throughout this already, but we have just a few questions as we are transitioning from our old processes to this new system of Sonia. So one of those is, if we have a technical issue with Sonia, who should we contact and reach out to?
So generally, students have been reaching out to their internship coordinator. So if it's been first level, it's been Sylvia. Second level, it's either Sandy, Amy, or myself. As Amy Greenberg works with students that are interested in schools. And Sandy and I work with second level students. My email is actually on many of the notifications. And there is also a Sonia email inbox as well that we all manage, or that two of us manage. So we're all working very collaboratively right now related to Sonia, because it is still new and we're learning from it. So you won't go wrong if you reach out to any one of us, because we are all working together to ensure that everyone receives the appropriate access to Sonia and has a good experience with Sonia. And we are learning from it. So we take that feedback and we put it in our sort of toolbox of things to learn about and how do we implement as we move forward. So yes.
I have to say, my personal experience, I reached out to Sylvia with something and she was very prompt in her response and got it fixed very quickly. So yes, I agree that contacting your internship coordinator is a great way to go about that.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah. So will there be another Sonia training with some new information or just in greater detail as we continue to transfer over, especially for students who are just entering their first level internship?
So we do have videos, student Sonia recordings. And as we move into the spring semester for those students that are first timers on Sonia, which could either be first level and or second level, we will be sharing that video. So that is the plan currently. And Sonia is fairly self-intuitive. I mean, and for the generation of IT lovers, like you sort of go in and, utilize the forums and the timesheet and everyone loves it. So, but yes, the recording will be made available to all the students that secure their internships for spring. And that is the plan moving forward.
Awesome. And then our last question with Sonia is, what happens if like the student isn't using Sonia and they're not keeping track of their hours or completing assigned forms? What implications does that have for their academic standing?
They're not
I'd
going to
like to
graduate.
respond to that, Minnie, and then have you come with the backup because it's a layered response. Student Affairs is really invested in student success. So we have a team of people designed to help students be successful. You have your internship coordinator, you have the assistant dean of student affairs, you have your field liaison that you're assigned to. Once you get your internship, you have your field supervisor at your site, plus you have your peers, you have your seminar instructor, so plus your instructors, your professors. So all of these people are designed to support you. And so when a student experiences some difficulty, or we work to make sure that nobody falls through the cracks, and we reach out and we devise a plan to support the student to be successful. And so when that happens, it comes to our attention via maybe an adjunct instructor, maybe a seminar instructor, maybe the field liaison, maybe it's the field supervisor at the site. There are a lot of vehicles and avenues that we get information that a student may be struggling, and we reach out to offer support. Minnie?
In terms of Sonia Online, all of it's the internship management system. So all documentation is happening on Sonia. It should be noted, and this is in the training video, there is a form called the 3-in-1, and that incorporates the learning agreement, the mid-year evaluation, and the final year evaluation. You cannot do the mid-year unless the final year evaluation is completed. You cannot do the final until the mid-year. You can't get your 530 or 630 course grade until you do the mid-year, and you cannot get your final grade. They're all interconnected and documented in Sonia. It is to be completed by the student, by the field supervisor, as well as the field liaison. So there's sort of multiple sections. It's not meant to be at all a barrier, but really, as Sylvia said, to enable their success. So all of this is assigned to the student right on the front end, and they have this form that they can work on at those specific points in time. So that's those 3 items are one area of documentation for your internship. Then the next one is your timesheets. So Sonia allows students to update or upload their time on a weekly basis with their field supervisor approving and signing off on their time. So it documents your internship, both in terms of its experience and the competencies that students are learning, as well as the time that is required to be spent in your internship that lends itself to receiving your MSW degree. So as Sylvia said, we will support all our students to ensure that they get access to Sonia and are able to utilize Sonia. But it is absolutely important. There's no paper documents outside of Sonia that are being used. There is no other evaluation form in another system that is being used. It is all through Sonia. So, and that documentation we will keep for 5 years. And when you graduate, you will be able to save it for your licensing purposes and whatever you need moving forward for any postgraduate work. So, yes.
That's it. Sylvia, I know you have to hop off now. We want to thank you very much for your addition to this conversation. And we're moving on to second years now. So we've gotten all the first year questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me. This has been
Thanks,
great.
Sylvia.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
A quick update on the question about students receiving COVID testing on campus. So the Associate Dean would defer to what students are hearing from the university, but to his knowledge, the testing will be happening on site on each campus. Students who are fully online wouldn't be coming to campus, so there is some confusion around there, and he recognizes that. So I'm not sure that provided a definitive answer, but yes.
I was actually asking about students that were going in person to their internships that were found through Loyola. So I'm going in person, and I just it's been really hard to get tested and be safe. And I know Loyola is rolling out testing, so I was hoping to be able to get tested next semester.
So I think that if you are on campus, so Sarah, your internship is on Loyola campus?
No, it's
Oh.
at a site near Loyola campus, but I found it through Loyola, and I'm still an active student at Loyola, and I could easily go to Loyola campus.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I have the answer to that, Sarah.
No worries, I can follow
Yeah.
up with the Wellness Center again and see if they need more clarification.
I mean, as a Loyola student, and if you're able to be on campus, it sounds like you would meet the requirements to be able to
Yeah,
get tested. So that's what I would say to that, but I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah.
okay,
I'm sorry,
thanks.
Sarah.
We can also collaborate with the dean and the wellness center, bring them together and see if we can get a definitive answer for you, Sarah. And I think a lot of other students would also be wanting a definitive answer on this as well. So thank you for your question.
I would also, Claire, say if we could advocate that students that are in field are able to get tested, because if you are moving inside, I can absolutely understand the desire and need to be supported in that way. So yes.
So we'll get
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think our last sort of section is about second level internship. Just because I know I have some sort of questions about this. And my first question was just more about like generally about specializations. So when and how do you declare a specialization in your second level?
So I did reach out to Jennifer Berniker to ensure that the message about declaring your specialization, because by the time you come to your second level internship and you come to me and Sandy and Amy, you've already declared. So students declare their specialization when they apply for their second level field online. So that's where and how a student declares that for Loyola. So your deadline is when you are ready to start your second level field. So for the summer block 2021, fall 2021, the deadline is December 1st. So at that point, when you submit your application, you would also be declaring, and you would be doing that on the advising second level because, and this kind of goes into your next question, but I'm going to keep going real quickly. If you have a subspecialization, then there are certain for both for your specialization and subspecialization, there are certain course requirements. So you're working with your advisor and identifying in your advising template what those course selections are related to your specialization and subspecialization. When you are in Sonia, looking to identify potential opportunities for your internship and looking to submit your resume and interview, you will be identifying those sites based on their specialization as well as subspecialization. So that is really important.
I think yes, you did get to my second question about when and how to declare a subspecialization. But then I think you also sort of touched on my third question, which is about the field sites with the specialization and the subspecialization sort of layered on top of that. Like, does your field placement, like if you are, schools and groups, are you doing group social work at your internship? Like, is that the requirement? If it's migration, are you doing school migration somehow? Like,
it depends, right? And so I don't want to get too much in the weeds here because I don't want to misstate anything. Groups can generally fall under all of the specializations. There are some requirements that you must meet for it to be a group subspecialization, which most sites can meet. So the faculty that leads it will provide you questions that you need to ask the site. Generally, sites are able to pivot because many of them are very excited to have someone come in and help manage groups if they're not already doing it, and or there's already group type activities. So there are general requirements that can be met that way. For others, CADC, OTEP, you have to find sites that have already met the eligibility requirements. We've reviewed it, and or the faculty that leads CADC and or OTEP has reviewed the sites to ensure that they meet that requirement for the student. And so when you filter in Sonia, you'll be looking for sites in your specialization. And correct, there are some specializations you couldn't be LDSS and CADC. That's correct. You'd be mental health, right, to be CADC. So it really worked with your advisor to ensure that your curriculum as well as is aligned with your specialization and subspecialization, and that when you're looking for sites in Sonia, that they are also aligned. And if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Sandy Peterson. We are more than happy to help, because I know that Sonia this is the first semester we're utilizing it fully. And so we would definitely want to mitigate any challenges around that.
So for things like migration, the subspecialization for migration, like if you're a mental health migration, are you then working with a migrant population? Or do you have to like complete some sort of project? Like if you're groups, like you have to run a group, you know what I mean?
Right, I am not as familiar with the migrant subspecialization, so I don't want to speak to that. I see Claire's got her hand up.
Yeah, okay, so the thing about the specializations and subspecializations and whatever is, and I only know this because I've sat in on the curriculum meetings, and I know you've been at a few as well, but a lot of that is changing. A lot of the language around it is changing. So they're asking those questions as well, Elizabeth, and trying to figure that out. And it sounds like Dr. Vidal is really trying to make that subspecialty be like as rich as possible. So that's definitely something more to aim her way, I think.
Thanks, Claire. And you are right. There are some changes coming down the pipeline. Until we are more familiar with that, at this point, we're continuing with the format that we have, which is our 5 specializations and our subspecializations. But you're right, Claire.
We hope to have another series of roundtables just on subspecializations next semester. So hopefully some of those questions can be clarified then.
That would be great, right? And I don't know if we would have the individuals that lead those subspecializations at the table, or yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think this one is more for me because I'm an LDSS student, but I feel like Loyola has a reputation for being like a clinical school. And I know like I've heard like some professors who are like, oh, we still have that reputation. I think like they're trying to like shake it. But like I know one of our registrants was asking like, how is Loyola creating more opportunities for LDSS students?
So in terms of sites, we are always open to and looking for opportunities to partner with a wide diversity of sites. We actually have more LDSS sites than we have students, so we actually don't get to fill most of our LDSS. We get a lot of our LDSS sites going, where are the students? So in that sense, we're always willing. I mean, one of the ways that we've actually opened up as a result of COVID, which we hadn't previously, so there's some silver linings to COVID, but in addition to the sites that we have available, that we've already partnered with and created a relationship with, we're open to building relationships with other agencies and sites that a student brings to our attention and introduces us to. So those are different ways that we can support both our LDSS students as well as other students. So I hope that that's helpful. I know that in terms of our LDSS, that while we don't have a designated SWFI class that I think is for LDSS, many of our students are in 1 or 2 SWFI classes, but also we do have an adjunct faculty who meets with all of the LDSS students, Kelly Hendrickson, and is the field liaison for those students, for the majority of those students, to help provide that additional support as an LDSS student. And she is also a macro practitioner. So those are different ways that we are looking to support our LDSS students. I myself am a macro person, so I completely understand, and have also come from a clinical school. And I know that there's a balance being in the School of Social Work and doing advocacy and policy. and some of the macro.
And for students who don't know what LDSS stands for, can you just tell us that?
Oh boy, I know it's leadership and development. And what's the SS, Elizabeth?
Social services.
Thank you.
Leadership and development in social
In
services.
social services.
Yeah.
For students who maybe, a first student who don't know that yet, that's kind of the more macro focus.
She doesn't know.
I'm like, I'm looking for my textbook that says social services. Okay, but I think you touched on like the next area that I was gonna talk about, which is the SWFI. Because I felt like this year's SWFI experience, I like the second level SWFI experience was like very different from last year's SWFI experience. And I'm not sure if that's a result of like just COVID or if it's just how second level SWFI goes. But like this year's SWFI course didn't start until like halfway through the semester. So there was like a lot of confusion on what the what the start of the course would be like and like what the time commitment would be. So is this normal like for a second level SWFI or is this just because of COVID?
No,
I'm not sure, Elizabeth, that I could answer that because this is my first year at Loyola. So I'm not sure that I could answer that, to be very honest, historically based. Yes, all the SWFIs did start a little bit later. Both, I think the first level as well as the second level. And that for the second level, for both first and second level, we did incorporate field simulation. And that was, there had always been a plan to incorporate that, but it was moved forward due to COVID. So that is correct. We piloted it in the summer and then we launched it fully this fall. And so first year students have access to an introduction to Cognito, which is an online sort of avatar experience working, answering questions when you see a interaction between a client and a therapist. In the second level, however, we moved it into both an advanced Cognito as well as an actual field simulation experience online, because we're all online, with an actor, with the Council for Social Education, CSE, I'm really bad with acronyms, which is a partner at Loyola. So all of the SWFI second level SWFI sections and all of the students that were enrolled in SWFI 630S were introduced to field simulation this past week, in fact, and it went fabulous, I must say. And it was an opportunity for students to do an actual clinical experience. It either supported activities that they were already doing on site, gave them an opportunity to have a more robust experience in the time of COVID, when many are doing remote distance activities and or telehealth, and or just allowed them to do a more, add to their skills related to clinical work. LDSS students, I know this is a question and I don't, I'm gonna stop right there. I'll let you ask the question.
I was like, Minnie, I have like 4 more questions.
I know.
I mean, like, yeah, I have thoughts on this year's SWFI. But I mean, like, first is just, do we have a SWFI for the next semester?
Yes, SWFI 630S is offered every semester, and you take it concurrently with SWFI 630. So when you're in your field, you take your 630S. So we have it for spring because we do have a spring-summer semester internships.
But like so like if you took SWFI this semester, do you take it next semester as well?
Oh, no. So,
okay.
So you only take SWFI one semester for your internship. So your first semester as a second level student, you take 630, which is your field internship, and 630S is your seminar class. And then the second semester, you register for 631, which is basically your field experience. But you don't take another seminar class. You just take the seminar that one semester. But a field seminar class is available every semester for incoming students in their internship. That's, yes.
Okay, yeah. I just like wanted to make sure because I was like, I know last year I only did 1 SWFI, but I was like, maybe second level is 2 SWFIs.
No.
And then so you were saying, so the field simulation, is that a requirement for all students moving forward? Like if you are in an internship, you will do a field simulation regardless of first or second. Oh, only second year. Okay.
So the Cognito, which is the online simulation experience, that is for first and second level. So there is an introductory cognito and advanced cognito, but the field simulation with an actor is only available to second level students currently. We are looking to build that out. So we'll see where it goes, but currently it is available for second level students.
Okay, I was kind of confused this year because I felt like I think that like goes along with like the first question about like SWFI sort of came in at like the halfway point, and then it was like, oh, by the way, you have to do a field simulation, and oh, by the way, you also have to do a reflection on that. Oh, by the way, you also have to present this case even though you're not clinical. So I felt like as an LDSS student, I'm like sitting in a class that's for clinical students, sort of like a square peg in a round hole, because it feels like the SWFI class is more geared for clinical students and not for LDSS students. And then that goes the same way with like the simulation, because the simulation was entirely clinical. My client cried and I was like, oh dear God, that's not in my social services book. And so I'm like wondering, like, is there going to be room for innovation for like making like an LDSS simulation where it's like maybe you're the supervisor doing some sort of corrective action plan? So yeah, just questioning.
There's always room for innovation. I'm always, I know Amy Greenberg, who is leading this, assistant director, assistant dean actually, who's leading this. We are always looking at innovation and making a more robust experience. And that is always a question as to how to improve the experience for the different specializations and so forth. Related to sort of the SWFI class for LDSS, I do believe that there are case presentations that are geared for LDSS students that are not clinical in nature, because I was just in a meeting earlier today where one of the faculty had shared that.
They ask you to present like on a policy in your field site, but then it's like all the materials are clinical, so it's like even the reflection paper from the field simulation with the actor is clinical. Like the rubric for it asks you, how do you apply this to your clinical experience?
Correct.
And you're like,
no, that
oh
is true.
God.
The field simulation is a clinical exposure. I was talking about the case presentation in your SWFI class, because I do believe that they've modified it so that it's both clinical as well as LDSS. For the field simulation, right now, as we introduce it, the focus of it is to support the development of motivational interviewing skills. So that being the basis of skills along the spectrum of not just clinical interventions, but also as sort of a social work skills background for all students, including LDSS. At this point, you're right. It is all students are focused on that. If and when we are, build it out more, absolutely. If it becomes where interventions are more clinically focused and more defined, then we would have to consider that. At this point, it is just very soft motivational interviewing skills, which all social work students do need to graduate with, including myself, who again, I was also the policy major. So, and I would just say from my experience with all of the students going through field simulation and receiving almost 6 groups of feedback, each and every LDSS student that was in the group were excited about the experience that they received. So I will say that I was extremely excited to hear that. That doesn't, of course, take away from the fact that they're looking for more of a LDSS experience, but that's what I would share related to the field simulation experience right now for LDSS students. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. I feel like being LDSS in a clinical school, it's like, be sure you're juggling both. Be sure you're clinical and motivational interviewing and also doing corrective action plans and thinking human resources. And then also so I know like your title is career career.
It's part of the hat I wear. Yep. Career
Yes.
service.
So are there career counseling opportunities maybe that you do, or maybe like within SWFI or the field seminars?
Yes. So we do a number of different things related to career services. One is that when students apply for their internship, submit their internship application, we've historically helped to review the resumes of students. That's still on the application right now. As soon as we have the bandwidth to be able to provide that support again, we will. Right now, due to COVID and the enhanced communication that's needed both with students as well as sites and our partners, we haven't been able to provide that just now. However, the Career Services Center, and I can actually provide some resources related to that. I might be able to attach it here. It's on our website as well. We've added all of these, we have, so in addition to that, we have our career services partner who supports all of our School of Social Work students. So I can actually share that with you, both you, Claire and Elizabeth, so you can share that with all the students. I have been sending it to any student that's been sending me their resume so that I can drive them directly towards working with the Career Services Center, which provides one-on-one sort of, they will review the resume, but they will also do mock interviews. You do need to schedule it in advance. There is a high demand for this. And then we also do an annual career fair in March. So the one for 2021 is scheduled March 25th. It is on our newsletter, and we are looking to bring our partner sites. It will be held virtually this year. But there have been a number of virtual career fair events at Loyola. So fortunately, we're not one of the first ones. So I think that we'll be very well adept to doing this. But we will be able to bring these sites to our students and during the career fair.
I think that moves really well into my last question, which is just like, I know I and like many other students are finishing up our time at Loyola this year. So as we move forward into the spring, can you like offer any advice on like what students should be thinking about in their final semester, in their like final semester of internship? What do you need to take away?
So I would say for the entire time that you're at Loyola doing your MSW, you know, immerse yourself in all the different opportunities that are available. And work towards your final semester. So my goal is for the message to be that this is part of a process. Ultimately, we want our students to have a very successful time at Loyola, both in terms of their academic curriculum, but also their field internship experience. So as part of that process, to stay in touch with us, to communicate with us, and that we will, work with you to ensure a successful experience. Hopefully, when you're at your final semester, you have taken advantage of all of these resources, utilizing your internship experience, utilizing your connection and networking to faculty, all of the activities, including what your organization has done for all of all the social work students. So taking advantage, I know it's harder now during COVID and during online experience, but there's a lot of faculty who are doing these seminars, pulling out different topics. So it's a great way to get to know different information, as well as your peers, getting to meet different peers. But so just take advantage of all of those opportunities so that when you are there in your last semester, you're really ready for success to jump into your next step, which is your career, your social work career. So honestly, I hope that all of what you've done through your resume writing, your cover letters, your networking, your interviews has really set you up for that third step, which is then doing your interviews and utilizing the resources that Loyola has to offer. So, and I think you guys have a lot of that information as well. SWFI, I mean, you guys are so involved, and I love to, Claire, you are at the curriculum meeting. I'm so great to see you guys involved. I think that really speaks to the strength of the student body and helping us just always have a more robust and successful program for all of you. So Elizabeth, I'd love to get more of your feedback related to LDSS. Please send them my way by email, and I would love to keep them and look to incorporate
Always, always. Thank you.
them. Yeah. So I hope that was helpful.
Elizabeth, do you want to put up the slides we have? So as you can see here, this is everybody's contact information of the field placement contacts. So Sylvia, who jumped off earlier, she was here first level, and we have Mini here with us still. And then we have Amy, she is the assistant dean and specifically for school specializations as well. So she's really the contact for that. Sandy, who is working collaboratively with Mini for second year students and is second level internship coordinator. And then Vanessa, who is the online bilingual program internship coordinator. So we have all these contacts here. And then we just want to thank everyone for coming tonight and joining us. And we'd also like to thank, our faculty members. Obviously, Sylvia left us, but thank you, Minnie, for staying with us for this full hour. We got a lot of good information. If you need to contact, as I said before, they're here. And don't forget that we are recording this session, so it will be available on our YouTube page. And be sure to follow us on social media as they are displayed up there. And this was the second in our series, so please watch the first recording on the screen if you have not already on advising. And thank you again, and everyone have a great night and a happy Thanksgiving break.